Aaliyah Boston didn't need the fourth quarter to leave her mark, and that's the real story. While the award decision raised eyebrows, it also highlighted how far Boston has come. Once a traditional post player, she's now running the floor, dishing out assists, and thriving in pick-and-roll action like a modern big. The Unrivaled League has become a personal proving ground, allowing Boston to retool her game outside the confines of the WNBA spotlight.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
She's not just getting in shape. She's reshaping the expectations for her position. The implications stretch far beyond her stat line. Boston's new versatility creates a foundation the Indiana Fever can actually build around. Paired with Clark, the Fever suddenly possess both speed and size, finesse and force. But potential alone won't carry them to contention. Front office decisions, like their past hesitation to acquire Aaliyah Edwards, have shown the cost of inaction. If Indiana fails to act now, they risk wasting the most promising duo the franchise has ever had. During a recent Unrivaled matchup, Boston was awarded Player of the Game, despite being benched for the entire fourth quarter. The same fourth quarter where Kelsey Mitchell, a.k.a. KK Refin, completely took over and dropped 19 points. Not only did Mitchell light it up when it mattered most, she essentially put the game on ice. Yet when the buzzer sounded, the recognition didn't go to her. It went to someone who spent the final stretch watching from the sidelines. The backlash was immediate. Fans were confused, analysts were skeptical, and even players seemed caught off guard. Because how does someone who sat the clutch quarter walk away with the top honor? The answer might be simple and also very uncomfortable: narrative. That award wasn't about who dominated the game's most important minutes. It was about who was supposed to be the face of the broadcast. That's the criticism hanging over Unrivaled right now. That it's less about competition and more about crafting storylines. That when it comes to awards, it's less who earned it tonight and more who fits our marketing arc. And when that starts bleeding into on-court recognition, people notice. This incident didn't just spotlight a questionable decision. It underscored something bigger. The rise of Aaliyah Boston is already being curated in real time. And whether that's good or bad depends on how it plays out on the floor. The uncomfortable part? Boston didn't ask for any of this. She's just been putting in work. Unrivaled may have awarded her a game she didn't finish. But what can't be disputed is her transformation during the season. Her body's changed. Her speed's changed. Her entire game is shifting into something new, something dangerous. Boston used to be considered a traditional post, powerful in the paint, a presence on the boards, but not especially fast and not particularly mobile. That's over. She's visibly leaner, faster, and playing with more pace. She's not just running the floor. She's controlling the flow, executing pick and rolls, making reads from the elbow, and finishing in transition like a wing. This is why Unrivaled matters. Not because of the awards or the standings. They don't even have a playoff format. But because it gave Boston the space to evolve outside of regular season pressure. No need to win the game. Just win the possession. And that freedom? It's been huge for her. So now the question isn't whether Boston is good. It's how far she's going to take this. And how Indiana plans to respond. Because what's brewing here is potentially one of the most lethal 1-2 punches in the WNBA. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Clark is the face of everything. Media darling, scoring machine, elite passer, cultural lightning rod. But Boston? She's the balance, the force, the anchor. When Clark stretches the floor, Boston punishes the interior. When Clark drives, Boston screens, rolls, and cleans up the misses. And with Boston's new mobility, defenses can't even drop back to contain her anymore. They have to respect her in motion. That changes everything. For Indiana, this isn't just a good pairing. It's the core of a new identity. One built on pace, size, and balance. Fast and physical at the same time. It's what every team wants, but few can execute. And the stats aren't just theoretical. If Boston keeps developing at this rate, we're talking about a legitimate shot at 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists per game. Those are MVP numbers, especially if the Fever finish near the top of the East. But there's a twist. The MVP race might not go through Clark at all. Clark will always be in the conversation. But media fatigue is real. Giving back-to-back MVPs to a player still in her first 2 seasons? It doesn't happen often. And if the narrative shifts even slightly, if the story becomes Boston is the glue holding this team together, then she's suddenly in pole position. Especially if her production holds up and the Fever keep winning. The spotlight might not stay on Clark forever. And Boston? She's ready to step into it. Which makes the Fever's next moves critical. Because this can't be a 2-player team forever. Internal growth is great, but it needs support. And Indiana's past decisions haven't exactly inspired confidence. Passing on Aaliyah Edwards last season? A misstep. She was available for next to nothing, and they sat on their hands. That could have been the perfect complementary piece for this core. Young, versatile, high motor, able to slide into multiple lineups. Instead, it was another wait-and-see moment from front office that's still acting like it is time to spare. But they don't. Not with the rest of the league arming up. Not with super teams dominating headlines. Not with Clark and Boston ready right now. The Fever can't afford to slow play this anymore. They need shooters, rim protectors, depth. They need to give Boston the help she deserves, not just around the rim, but in schemes that highlight her passing and floor vision. She's not just a rebounder anymore. She's not just a screener. She's a facilitator, a secondary playmaker, a defensive backbone. She's doing everything. And the longer the front office waits to acknowledge that, the more ground they lose. This is what the Player of the Game controversy really exposed. It wasn't just a weird award. It was a moment that made everyone realize how much Boston has already elevated and how much the systems around her haven't. She didn't need that award to prove anything. She's already proved it on the court. She's already built the case. She's already become the kind of player teams have to plan entire game strategies around. And if Indiana doesn't start treating her like that, they're not just holding her back. They're holding themselves back. The future of the franchise doesn't revolve around Clark or Boston. It's built on both. And pretending otherwise is a fast track to mediocrity. So now, the path forward is simple. Aggressive moves in the offseason, smart roster construction, and finally giving Boston the stage her game demands. No more framing her as the undercard. No more pushing the narrative just to fit media expectations. Just let her play, because when she does, the impact speaks for itself. She doesn't need the spotlight handed to her. She's taking it either way. Let us know what you think. Was the award controversy a fluke or a sign of bigger issues with how narratives are shaped in women's basketball? Is Boston being underestimated in her own franchise, or are fans finally starting to realize what's happening right in front of them? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit like if you're tired of the media treating co-stars like backups, and subscribe for more on the power shifts, missteps, and rising dominance reshaping the WNBA. Because if this season goes the way it's looking, Aaliyah Boston won't just be in the conversation. She is the conversation. Let's be honest. The media machine wasn't built for Aaliyah Boston. It was built for flash, for viral moments, for logo threes and sound bites that bounce around TikTok before the highlight is even over. And when you have someone like Caitlin Clark, who is the flash in the moment, it makes sense why all the oxygen in the room gets funneled her way. She's instant electricity. But Aaliyah Boston? She's the foundation, the quiet domination, the kind of player who doesn't need volume because her game is efficient, methodical, everywhere. The problem is, when you're not the loudest, you get overlooked. You get tagged as the supporting cast to someone who hasn't played a single WNBA minute yet. You get praised for doing the little things while others get crowned for the big ones. And that's exactly why the Unrivaled Player of the Game drama hit so differently. Because it was the first time Boston got an award that was purely narrative-driven. And everyone saw it. The backlash wasn't really about her. It was about what it represented. It was about how women's basketball, for all its growth, is still stuck in this loop of choosing stories over substance when it comes to recognition. Kelsey Mitchell exploded in the fourth. She earned it. But the league saw Boston as the marketable name and leaned in. Was it fair? No. Was it strategic? Probably. And that's the issue. Players see that. Fans see that. You can't preach competitive integrity and then hand out awards like you're checking boxes for a press release. But here's the irony. Aaliyah Boston didn't ask for any of it. She didn't politic for praise. She didn't lobby to be the face of anything. She earned her moment the old-school way, by putting in the work. Her transformation during Unrivaled didn't come from a hype train. It came from sweat, from hours of footwork drills, pace changes, and refining her reads in live motion. From reshaping her body to become faster without sacrificing strength. From evolving her game not just to fit in the modern league, but to lead in it. That's what gets lost in all the noise. Because when Boston steps on the court now, she's not just a center. She's a weapon, a facilitator, a transition threat, a two-way monster who can defend in space, finish through traffic, and now find cutters out of the short roll like a point forward. That's not development. That's evolution. And the Indiana Fever need to wake up to it. Fast. They can't afford to build their team around just Caitlin Clark. That's not a knock on Clark. She's generational. But this is a duo, and if you don't treat it that way from day one, you lose one of the most naturally synergistic pairings women's basketball has seen in years. Clark needs a mobile big who can keep up with her tempo. Boston is that now. She didn't use the offseason to rest. She used it to level up for Clark's arrival. She built herself into the kind of player that makes life easier for a young point guard who's going to have the weight of an entire league on her shoulders. And what's more, Boston isn't just adjusting to Clark. She's unlocking her own ceiling in the process. The prediction floating around, 16 points, 10 boards, 6 assists per game. That's not fantasy anymore. It's a blueprint, a direct result of the freedom she had in Unrivaled to experiment without fear of failure. You can't run elbow actions and initiate offense as a post in the middle of a tight WNBA playoff race. But you can do it in Unrivaled. You could develop playmaking skills in an environment where growth is prioritized over wins. And that's exactly what she did. So now the narrative needs to catch up, because the MVP conversations that will inevitably orbit Clark this season, they better make room. Because if the Fever win games and Boston puts up those projected numbers while anchoring the defense and doing all the things that don't show up in highlights, there's no way to justify keeping her name out of it. And media fatigue is real. The voters will hesitate before handing Clark 2 MVPs in 2 years. That hesitation could be Boston's window. If the Fever are winning and she's doing everything on both ends, it's going to be impossible to ignore. That is, if the Fever are actually positioned to win. And this is where it gets even more frustrating. Because Indiana has been sitting on this gold mine of talent and still doesn't seem to grasp the urgency of the moment. They had a chance to get Aaliyah Edwards for cheap. Didn't pull the trigger. Could have shored up the front court and made life easier for Boston on both ends. Didn't do it. That kind of indecision is how you waste generational talent. Because Clark and Boston aren't just great players. They're rare players who actually fit together. But they can't carry this team alone. You need shooters, defensive wings, secondary playmakers, bigs who can slide between positions. And most importantly, you need a system that uses Boston as the two-way force she's become. She's not a role player. She's not just a screener. She's not a rim protector who camps out waiting for rebounds. She's a playmaker, a tempo setter, a physical presence with vision. Start building your schemes around that, and everything else flows. But right now, the Fever are at a crossroads. They can either step into this new era with both feet or fall back into their old habits of half measures and development timelines that move slower than the rest of the league. That won't work anymore, because the window isn't opening. It's here. Clark is ready. Boston is ready. The fan base is hungry. The WNBA is exploding in visibility. There is no next season. There's only this one. And the margin for error is thin. Because this isn't a league where you get 5 years to figure it out. You either build around your stars now, or someone else does later. Boston didn't need that award from Unrivaled. She didn't need validation from a panel. What she needs is a franchise that sees what she's become and moves with the same urgency she's shown every time she steps on the floor. Because here's the truth. She's not playing for potential anymore. She is the player she was projected to become. And if Indiana doesn't adjust its mindset accordingly, they're going to be the last ones to realize what they had. The uncomfortable truth is this. Aaliyah Boston is outgrowing the pace of her own franchise. And if Indiana doesn't move faster, a lot faster, they risk turning one of the most promising cores in recent WNBA history into just another what could have been. Everything is right there. You have Caitlin Clark, the perimeter prodigy with generational passing vision, range that warps defenses, and the kind of star power that sells out arenas without trying. And you have Boston, who, while everyone was fixated on Clark's arrival, was quietly transforming into the kind of big that championship teams are built around. But while the players are leveling up, the front office, still dragging its feet, still hesitant, still acting like this is year one of a rebuild, not year three of a reset with two franchise cornerstones already in place. And here's where it gets dangerous. Because players notice. They feel when the energy doesn't match the opportunity. They feel when they're ready for contention, but management is still talking about growth phases and long-term vision. That disconnect, if it lingers, is what pushes stars away. It's what breaks locker rooms. It's what turns potential dynasties into decade-long mediocrity. And Boston, for her part, is giving them every possible sign she's ready. She didn't show up to Unrivaled to collect a check. She showed up to test her ceiling and shattered it. She's running the floor like a wing, making reads like a guard, finishing through contact, and facilitating from the elbow like she's been doing it for years. Her conditioning is next level. Her footwork is sharper. She's not just reacting to defenses, she's reading them, manipulating them. She's leading breaks, calling out switches, owning the flow of the game. That's not the profile of a future star. That's the resume of an MVP candidate. So when she gets overlooked, or worse, pigeonholed, it's not just frustrating, it's insulting. Because it ignores everything she's done to expand her game. And it speaks volumes about how far behind the narratives are compared to the reality of her impact. This is a player who could easily average a double-double while adding 5 to 6 assists a game. Not off of post-kickouts, but off real, orchestrated actions. Screens, slips, short rolls, high-lows, she's seeing it all, executing it all. And she's doing it within the flow, not forcing anything. That kind of basketball IQ, that kind of versatility, that's what separates all stars from the rest. And she's doing it all while anchoring the defense, too. Because make no mistake, Boston is still a defensive problem for opposing teams. Her timing, her ability to hedge and recover, her footwork in pick-and-roll coverages, it's all improved. And she's doing that while carrying more offensive responsibility than ever. So again, the issue isn't Boston. It's the people around her who are slow to adjust. Slow to acknowledge that she's not just evolving, she's already there. And when Unrivaled handed her player of the game after sitting the fourth, the backlash wasn't about Aaliyah Boston, the player. It was about the system around her, the one that still treats her rise as optional instead of inevitable. Because it is inevitable. The leap has already happened. Now the question is whether the franchise tasked with building around her is going to meet her at that level, or stay stuck playing it safe. And that leads to the next critical problem, Indiana's track record. If the Aaliyah Edwards situation didn't set off alarm bells, it should have. She was right there, young, athletic, high upside, available for low cost. She could have been the third piece in a front court that would have terrified the league for years. And what did Indiana do? Nothing. They passed, sat on their assets, waited for better timing. That move alone told you everything about where their mindset still is: conservative, risk-averse, and miles behind the urgency of their own roster. Championships aren't won by holding on to theoretical flexibility. They're won by recognizing when the window opens and diving through it. Aaliyah Boston is that window. She's not going to wait forever for the front office to catch up. Players don't operate like that anymore. They see what's happening around the league. They see teams like Las Vegas and New York stacking their rosters, building with urgency, making moves not just to compete, but to dominate. That's the energy. That's the standard. So when Indiana moves like it still has 3 more seasons to figure things out, it signals one thing loud and clear. They don't fully understand what they have. Boston isn't asking for that understanding. She's forcing it. With every screen, every defensive rotation, every no-look pass out of the short roll. She's not waiting for permission to be a franchise player. She already is one. The media may still be stuck on Clark's arrival. And sure, that attention helps. It elevates the team. It sells jerseys. But when it comes to winning basketball, Boston is just as essential, if not more so. She's the one who ensures Clark doesn't have to carry the full load on offense. She's the one who makes it possible to play fast and physical. She's the one who keeps the defense anchored while the offense experiments. That's the blueprint. And if Indiana doesn't start following it, they're going to lose more than games. They're going to lose trust. Because here's what's coming next. If Boston continues on this path, and Clark performs as expected, and the Fevers still don't build a roster aggressively around them, the pressure from fans, from the media, from the locker room, it's going to mount. Every close loss, every fourth-quarter collapse, every blown opportunity will come back to this moment, when the team had 2 stars and still moved like a rebuilding project. You don't get many chances to build around talent like this. The Fever have theirs right now. But the difference between being a fun playoff team and a serious title contender is simple. Action. Boston's game is moving. Clark's ceiling is rising. The WNBA is expanding, gaining fans, gaining viewership. The Fever don't need more time. They need urgency. And they need to stop treating Boston like she's the future. She's the present. She's the one who made the leap while no one was looking. She's the reason Indiana has a chance to win now. Not someday. Let us know. Are you as stunned as we are by how fast Aaliyah Boston is rising? Is Indiana doing enough? Or are they about to fumble the most valuable frontcourt player in the league outside of Aya Wilson? Drop a comment, hit like if you see what's happening with Boston's game, and subscribe to stay locked in on everything this league refuses to talk about but needs to. Because if Aaliyah Boston keeps ascending and the Fever stays stuck in neutral, the only headline left will be, Indiana had it all, and let it slip.